Oh, can you say they're hot? I see some fire emojis from Winona in the chat. Is that pertaining to the 76ers who have won 4 of their last 5 games? Can they make it 5 of 6, get 2 more days off, and then play the Charlotte Hornets on Monday to maybe make it 6 of 7? Well, first things first, the Indiana Pacers tonight. Will the Philadelphia 76ers be able to make it that 5 of 6? Welcome to the pregame show right here, the PHLY Sixers Pregame show presented by our good friends from Coors Light. Yes, Coors Light. Got to go get yourself a Coors Light. It's cold outside and you want to relax and put your feet up and choose chill and maybe get a win with the basketball team? Well, you choose chill with Coors Light. Coors Light, visit CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball to get Coors Light delivered or to find a store near you. Rich Hoffman, Devon Givens, Brianna here producing. All of you hanging out with us on this Friday night for some Friday night hoops in the chat. And Rich, watch out now. They have a chance. First things first, if you look at our thumbnail photo and you see Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey will play their 3rd game together. And I had to look at this first. I was like, wait a minute. Did they play together against the Knicks because Joel played, Paul George played? No, that's when Maxey was out with the hamstring injury. So this is, in fact, Rich, game number 3 for your 3 All-Stars on the floor together this season. They are 22 games into the season. Tonight is game number 23, and this is only the 3rd time that we have an opportunity to see them all on the floor together. They have only won 1 game, which was Chicago, and they have a chance to make that 2 tonight. This is where Kyle and Derek will mess around and say, the season starts again tonight. Well, Rich, the season kind of starts again tonight, and that's really true because there's 60 games left in the books and an opportunity for them here to, with the continuity that has not been there, 2 days off, 4 days off after their win, practice time, some film study to get that continuity back to really start to get into a pretty good groove.
Doesn't it kind of feel like a football game tonight, man, just with the amount of anticipation that we've had for this one? It's just a good call. It's very odd in the
NBA Cup.
In the NBA schedule, yeah. The NBA Cup losers bracket, what a reward you get that your guys get to rest up. You get to really prep for a game. Yeah, it's certainly different. And even the last game that they played, I know you guys had the watch along the other day. I was at the Eagles game, man. Right. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people were freaking out about it.
We were a little more comfortable than you were.
Sure, yeah. And Joel kind of sneaks under the radar and comes back into the lineup and looks pretty good, I have to say. He looked good, and it's exciting, man. It's there have been a lot of games so far this season, man, where we've just said, we think they're probably going to lose, but hopefully they can keep it close. Yeah. Having these 3 guys available, it just changes the whole outlook, right? Yes. It really, I appreciate everybody in the chat sticking with us and kind of grinding through that first part of the season. All right, this is cool. Now you have all 3 of these guys. Mm-hmm. They looked not perfect together, but obviously there's a lot of talent on the floor when they play. When the big fella plays, it completely changes the outlook of the team. Mm-hmm. They don't have to play a great game to win sometimes, whereas earlier in the season, they did have to play a great game to win. It's exciting. And now they have the eyes of Philadelphia on themselves. They're all alone, man. There's no Eagles game tonight. There's nothing.
No
just
Flyers.
No Flyers. There's a Friday night Sixers game against Indiana, against a team that has struggled this season, a little more surprisingly as well. So I am certainly very excited for this one.
No, so am I, man. And let's just start again with those 3. Joel Embiid comes back. He has 31. He starts off 0 for 6, does not look good. While you were maybe feeling a little more comfortable at the Eagles game, even though they got off to a slow start, we expect that from the Eagles in the first quarter. So even though it's Carolina, no big deal. We, on the other hand, 0 for 6 for Joel Embiid. We're looking at it and we're saying, man, Chicago's pretty hot right now.
You don't have the promise of the Eagles' second and fourth quarters.
No, and this thing is going to get away pretty quickly here for the 76ers with all 3 guys out there on the floor. But You get into that second quarter, he comes back. He goes nuts. He looks fantastic.
Look great.
From the second quarter on. Tyrese Maxey, you start to see him picking it up. And even though he's not scoring, I believe in the first quarter he may have had 4 points in that first quarter, but you can see him rebounding the basketball, getting some early assists. And then in the second quarter, those assists really pick up because that's when Embiid started to connect with Tyrese Maxey for those pocket passes to knock down those mid-range jump shots and get him going early. And then you had the Paul George part of it as well that really started to put the pieces together overall for the 76ers. But, Rich, then you saw the fact that Tyrese Maxey is in a triple-double watch because he's in the groove. Joel Embiid cannot miss now where he's going nuts in the third quarter. And then Paul George, you sprinkle him in with the things that he's doing. Couple that with some contributions from others off the bench, the others surrounding them in the starting lineup. Kelly Oubre, again, playing some really good defense out there on the floor. And next thing you know, even though Chicago comes back because it's a game of runs, here we are talking about, man, that was pretty good. That was pretty fun.
Yeah.
That was some pretty fun stuff to watch. And they really did put on display where you have the two guys that know how to play off of one another, Embiid and Maxey. But George is the one that, while he's plug and play, 34 years old, he knows how to do it. He's played with a lot of different players in the league. You just put him in there as that wing around those other two All-Stars and they'll figure it out. And while they did, you still want to see them figure it out where it looks pretty seamless.
That's where you saw a little bit of the feeling out process,
Exactly.
right? Tyrese and Joel, they've played for long enough and they've played at a high enough level that Tyrese, obviously, he was a hot button topic last week, but he gets Joel back and he flows right back into it. And he has his best game in a while. And look, man, the shots are easier when he plays with Joel, right?
Yeah.
Joel is not even the greatest screen setter in the world, Devon, but he's just so big. Tyrese was getting acres of space for that three-pointer off the dribble handoff and off the pick and roll.
Yes.
You could just see what a difference it makes. It's partially because he's huge, but it's also partially because defenses are worried about him rolling. I think it certainly changes the idea. Derek really put me onto this a few weeks ago, that Tyrese with his playmaking, the closer he gets to the rim, that's where he starts to struggle a little bit, but that's why he works so well with Joel, because he can get to the free throw line and he can kind of pick you apart, mostly with the pocket pass to Joel, but that's why they work so well together, right? Joel doesn't want to roll to the rim, right? He wants to roll right to the free throw line, save those joints, fire up those free throw line jumpers. And yeah, it was great, man. Obviously, he started slow the other day, Joel, but he had a couple of those, Devon, he obviously got going with the pick and roll in the middle of the floor. And it was funny, they ate on a play that was the most basic setup in the world. It was not very creative. They ran a pick and roll, middle of the floor with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. They put one guy in the dunker spot. It was often KJ Martin. And they put two guys in the corner. And that's all they did. And they got, sometimes the corner guy would get the three. Sometimes Joel would get a nice pocket pass from Tyrese. Sometimes the guy in the dunker spot would get the ball. I'm sure they're going to keep running that tonight. Indiana is not the greatest defensive team in the world. I do like that that Papa's in the chat says that he awaits the inevitable TJ inbound steal. There is nobody who does the BS inbound steal better than TJ McConnell. He was doing it all the way back when he was a Philadelphia 76er, when nobody knew he was going to make all this money in the NBA that he richly deserves. A great career for him so far. So, yeah, man. And I was just watching that basic pick and roll. It had me thinking like, oh, thank God Joel's back. You know, it's just like Nick Nurse doesn't have to be creative anymore, Devon. Now, I would like to see some actions where PG is also involved, because on some of those plays, PG is standing in the corner, which, again, he can do, right? He's a good shooter. That's part of the allure of PG, is that you can play him off the ball and he's still somebody that defenses have to respect. But I do think there are ways to get him more involved in the action as well. But in fairness, like, look, it was the first night. I mean, I know they played that game in Memphis, but Devon, we're talking, I think they were on 7 minutes before the other night. Now they're on 32 minutes together. They are plus 17 per 100. Now, does that really matter? No, because if you look at those numbers, the other teams aren't scoring any baskets at all. So the offense is still pretty clunky in those minutes. But yeah, it was definitely a good start. That was a nice surprise walking out of the Eagles game the other day, seeing the tweets, listening to you guys on the post-game show, and eventually going back to watch the game, looking at it and seeing, okay, this was pretty good. That looked good. That gave us some hope moving forward. You have the nice layoff, so we don't even have to worry yet, I don't think, about Joel's knee in terms of, you know, how is it going to respond to a bunch of games in a row, because he's had 4 days off at this point. So it's a perfect little setup for him here. Hopefully they continue with another win.
The Paul George piece we've talked about a lot during the week because of the fact that they have not played since Sunday. And the one thing, as you mentioned, being in that corner, Rich, you can just see it when his knee is right. Of course, the instincts are always there. He knows how to play basketball. And again, to play off of these players. I always say these guys don't know until they play with Embiid of how different it is to play with Joel Embiid. Tyrese Maxey knows. He has lived that. Paul George, when he finally gets that knee right and is able to then, Rich, move out the corner, cut baseline, the defender turns his head 1 second. Paul George is gone. Joel Embiid, now the next part of that is that quick bullet pass to him on the baseline for a dunk or a layup because the attention. What is the defense to do when something like that eventually happens? You know, we got to keep a lot going. We're going to talk about a key player for the 76ers who is out. We'll do that on the other side right here on the PHLY Sixers Pregame show presented by Coors Light. And I'll start off by telling everybody about, listen, it's cold outside, all right?
It is. It's freezing,
cold outside.
dude.
It was 63 degrees the other day with some rain, but it was 63 degrees the other day. And then you also had a 50-degree day with no rain until later in the evening. But it's 30 degrees now these last few days. It's going to remain cold this weekend, and you don't want to get sick. And I have the place for you to go if you're starting to feel the sniffles, your nose is running a little bit, you need some tissues, but maybe you need a little bit more because you feel like you might be coming down with pneumonia. You have to protect yourself from that. Adults age 50 and older are now eligible for the vaccine. It was previously age 65, but the CDC lowered the age recommendation to 50 plus. Millions of people get pneumonia every year, according to the CDC. It's a respiratory illness, and fall and winter are the time when germs that cause respiratory disease typically spread more in the community, and partially because we take it lightly when the weather improves just a little bit. Well, we take some of those layers off. So you have to be careful. Some people will get pneumonia, have mild symptoms, but others experience serious complications. The vaccine is one of the best ways to help keep yourself healthy. It usually costs nothing with your insurance. So take care of yourself first. And if you're starting to feel a little funny and you need to get checked out, make sure you run to the friendly neighborhood Rite Aid. Get vaccinated. It's very easy. Just walk into your local Rite Aid, schedule online at riteaid.com. Unsure of what vaccines you may need? Just ask your pharmacist for a personal recommendation. Stop by your local Rite Aid today.
It is cold outside.
It's very cold.
Those people who were at the arena, there's that wind tunnel outside of the Wells Fargo Center. Warm up once you get inside. I had to brave that plenty of times. Anyway, Devon, I am here to tell you about our friends at TrueMark Financial Credit Union. And while the Sixers perhaps at times have tested this idea, it is hard to win without proper coaching. But TrueMark is here to help you coach your kids. If you've got kids, TrueMark has the ultimate playbook for teaching financial responsibility with a free Greenlight account. The Greenlight app is changing the game, helping kids and teens learn how to earn, save, and spend wisely. They can set up savings goals, track their spending, and even get an allowance, all right there in the Greenlight app. And here's the really cool part, Devon. Each kid gets their own debit card so they can make purchases and learn real-world money skills while you, the parent, stay in control from your phone. You get peace of mind, and they get the freedom to make smart decisions with their money. It's like coaching your kid through their very own financial game. And for TrueMark Financial members, it is free. With the holidays right around the corner, now is the perfect time to introduce your kids to Greenlight. Get signed up today and visit truemark.com/greenlight for more information.
Great stuff. As always, welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Pregame show presented by Coors Light. Visit CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball to get Coors Light delivered or to find a store near you. Yes, I do not like the cold. Rich does not like the cold. Bree does not like the cold. I know Derek and Kyle don't either. Make sure you protect yourself, everybody, so you're not walking away with the flu. All right. We do have to tell you about one important player that is out. Caleb Martin has been coming off the bench. Kelly Oubre getting the start. Yabusele also getting the start. We'll tell you about the starting lineup here shortly. But any worries with that right shoulder impingement, as they're stating with the injury report for Caleb Martin? We knew that he was dealing with something. He never said anything. I do give him credit for going out there and continuing to just fight through it. As ugly as it looks, he doesn't care. He keeps getting those shots up and still trying to impact the game in other ways. Your thoughts, Caleb Martin out, is that important to you, or does that kind of, you're okay since you have most of the guys back now?
I think it's a perfect game for Caleb Martin. Now, somebody in the chat, this was a few post-game shows ago, they pointed out something that I forgot. And so shout out to the chat for that. I forget the exact poster because I would give them credit. Somebody pointed out that in Caleb's contract, he has incentives. You remember this, right? This was part of the reason the Sixers were kind of able to
Great call.
skirt around the limitations that they had financially in a legal way with a thing called unlikely bonuses, right? And part of the unlikely bonuses for Caleb Martin involved playing over 67 games in the season. Part of it also involves the Sixers winning over 49 games. So we'll see if Caleb can get that money that way. So that could have been part of it, right? That could have been a motivation for him continuing to stay on the floor. And as poorly as Caleb is playing, because he's injured, right?
Yes, he is.
Because he's injured and they don't have a lot of help for him. We talked about both those things. The guy's not healthy, but also when he's your fifth or sixth best player, it's a lot different than when he's, called on to like run pick and rolls and actually give you consistent offense. If he was going to sit a game, it would be this one because you're only going to miss one game. Now, maybe he misses the Monday game against Charlotte,
which will also still give you 2 more days off after that.
So people have brought up, somebody else brought up that he's going to want to play against his brother. I don't buy that one because he's played against his brother twice already this year. They're going to play another game in a week. I think that'll be okay. I would like Caleb Martin to sit out both of these games because then he gets like 12 days off, man.
Yes.
That would be a huge deal.
Yes.
So if that is what is going on here, and I don't really begrudge Caleb Martin playing because the Sixers, first off, they needed bodies for a lot of those games. And number two, as poorly as he is playing, he was considered a steal in free agency at the time of that signing. So if that is what is motivating him, also with, I want to help the team, that is fine. I don't know if that's the case, but I think that is important context. So no, I'm not really worried about him right now. I'm happy that he is getting these 11, 12 days off because that dude, he needs to rest up more than his shoulder. Obviously, 100%. That's been the big thing because he's been grabbing at it.
Don't forget about the back.
Remember the back? I mean, he's just been super banged up the entire season. So good for him getting these games off. Perfect timing. So you mentioned the starting lineup. What do you think?
Bree, let's throw the starting lineup up there.
Here we go.
Rich.
Good job, Bree. So as you can see, you have Paul George, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and obviously we know those guys are going to play.
Yeah.
The two guys in between them are the more important ones. Kelly Oubre and Gershon Yabusele. And Nick Nurse has talked a lot at practice and after games that he wants to stay big to start games. And that's understandable, right? That's understandable because the other team's best scorers are going to start the game, right? And he's also talked about maybe I'll switch it up in the second half if I don't like it.
Which he did against Chicago.
He did.
Jared McCain. Yep.
He put McCain in there. It seems to me, and you tell me your thoughts on this, the Sixers are up to 12th in defense, man. It's kind of surprising, right? It just felt
quietly, right? Quietly.
And really, before Joel showed up, because Joel is going to make a huge difference on that end as 100%. Well. We have a full career of evidence on that. On that part, he's Paul George has really helped as well on that side of the floor. So I think he wants to lean into that identity. I think Nick Nurse is primarily a defensive coach. That is where he is leaning here.
And we saw that when we discussed it also so much about when Nick Nurse was hired for the flexibility that he liked to have. While there were different type of personnel with those 6'8", and we talked about this during the show as well. So I'm repeating myself a bit, but having that 6'8", 6'9" guy that is interchangeable in your lineup overall, well, now you have these other different types. And that was one of the things that we discussed when we looked at the starting lineup. If healthy, Martin, Oubre with George at the wing, we loved it. And we love the idea of that. Hey, where's Ricky Council going to fit in this? Where's KJ Martin coming in off the bench? And he's going to fit in this as well with Andre Drummond. And we'll figure out the Kyle Lowry and everybody else where Jared McCain goes into all of this. Well, now, Rich, that he's seen it, Yabusele hasn't played a lot of 4. He's played primarily 5. We couldn't wait to see him at the 4, especially next to Joel Embiid. And we're getting that. We talk about a seamless fit of Paul George just sliding right into a spot around the All-Stars. Yabusele is just seamlessly, no matter what they've asked of him, he's done it. And he's performed.
He's a little things guy.
Yeah. Yes, he's done everything. So when you ask him now to go out there tonight and defend Pascal Siakam as best as he possibly can, we'll see. He may not be as quick, but his body, though, is pretty big, and he can put his body on him, maybe bump him off his spot, not allowing him, if he beats him to the spot, not allowing him to get into his type of shot that he wants. But I like the idea. And then seeing that he doesn't care, where we complain about Jared McCain needs to be starting. Well, Jared McCain started that third quarter in the second half because of what they saw in the first, how well it worked with the bigs, as you talked about, but saw something there with that smaller lineup to have Jared McCain with that group to start things off and mix it up as well. Maybe KJ Martin's playing well to close out the game, where that's what we liked about Nick Nurse in the very beginning with him coming back. So I like the idea. I don't mind these guys being the starter because you know that between 25 and 30 minutes, Jared McCain is going to play those minutes.
And I don't care when it comes as much.
As long as it happens.
I don't care when it happens.
Exactly. So I'm fine with the starting lineup tonight. The starting lineup for the Pacers, by the way, you have Miles Turner at the 5, Pascal Siakam at the 4, and then you also round it out with Ben Mathurin. Andrew Nembhard is back. He was been injured for a good portion of the season, and you also have Tyrese Haliburton at the point guard position. Yeah. So good matchups tonight across from the Sixers and the Pacers.
Elliot in the chat does not seem too excited about this game. Shout out to Elliot. That's fine. You're allowed to be concerned about the game.
Is that the pace?
I think he's concerned about the pace. And in the past, Indiana's pace,
last season,
their actual speed, no pun intended, was a tough thing to guard, right? And that's a tough thing for Joel. They run up and down the floor. Now, here's the trade-off. If Joel was playing with the requisite force, he would score buckets on Indiana in kind of isolation around the elbow, the free throw line, easier than pretty much any team in the league. Like, they would throw some of the most ridiculous doubles in the league at him. He would score through those, but they would run the ball up and down the floor. And they've been doing that for a few years, but obviously it took off at around this time last year. I actually, Devon, I was watching the All NBA show, which is a good show with Adam Mares and Tim Legler. It's part of the All City Network. They talk about the entire league. Legs is a great NBA breakdown guy, has been for ESPN for a long time. They mentioned their two most disappointing teams to start this season so far. And the Sixers were number 1, but the Pacers were number 2. And frankly, as much as this has been a disappointing start to the season for the Sixers, it's understandable, right? Like 90% of this is that guys are hurt. Come on, Indiana has the same amount of losses as the Sixers. They have about the same exact point differential.
And 3 more games played.
Yeah, now they are 10-15, the Sixers are 7-15. But they have around the same point differential, too, as the Sixers, who were running out these unbelievably shorthanded lineups. These guys were in the conference finals last year. And Devon, these guys, their stars have been healthy the entire year.
The only one that's really been out is Nembhard, as I mentioned, who's a big part of what they do.
Yeah, he's
big. And then you lost your 2 backup centers in Jackson and Wiseman. Some guys has missed sometime. But to your point, they've been relatively healthy.
I'm looking at it now.
On that side.
Siakam and Haliburton, every game. Mathurin, every game. Miles Turner has missed 2 games so far.
Yeah.
Sure, they've had some guys out. They had Nembhard.
Nembhard's been out.
Nesmith has been out a little bit. But come on, compared to the Sixers, this is small potatoes, man.
Yes.
And they are 19th in offense right now. To me, that is a far more disappointing team than what the Sixers have had. Yeah. Sixers just haven't had their guys so far this year.
And I'll also counter when you talk about the speed and the pace that Elliot is bringing up with the Pacers. You're 100% right, because we've talked about this as a matchup for the Sixers that was problematic a season ago. Chicago plays with pace.
Yeah, they do.
And they got up and down the floor in the Sixers, but the Sixers responded. And while Vucevic doesn't get up the floor as fluidly as Miles Turner, everyone else does, though, with that group. And then you have Buzelis coming off the bench as well, Lonzo Ball coming off the bench. They can get up. They can push the pace. Josh Giddey can push the pace with that Bulls team. The Sixers managed that
great job
really well.
That was a defensive win.
Exactly. And while Indiana's a better team, if we're just talking about pace, though, it's very similar, and the Sixers did a pretty good job. By the way, the Sixers did beat the Indiana Pacers for one of their 7 wins. It was actually their first win of the season in that overtime matchup. So, Elliot, they have played this team already, and you're right about the pace. Nembhard is the only one, though, that wasn't available, and the Sixers clipped them. Maxey had 45. They didn't have Embiid. They didn't have George, and they snuck away with that 4-point win in overtime. So I do like their chances tonight, especially coming off of what they had on Sunday and the fact that they've had 4 days off to work on some things to get right.
Well, I mean, part of the tough idea of playing the Pacers, if you're playing them on like the second night of a back-to-back, I know they're not playing with quite the same amount of pace this year, but that's hard, right? That's a hard thing to bounce back from. Sixers are very rested, so they should be in a good spot. The other thing, and again, I have not watched too much of the Pacers this year, Devon. I'm going to be honest with you. they talked about Tyrese Haliburton disappearing on the All-NBA podcast. And I remember last year they played a back-to-back, and the first game, Tyrese Maxey, 50 points.
Yes.
Second game, it's always hard to win those second games of those two-game home series or whatever. Yeah. That was an NBA Cup game, and Tyrese Haliburton was unbelievable. I think he had like 17 assists, no turnovers.
Yeah.
He was just running that offense beautifully.
Yes.
And he has just not been the same player so far this year. Apparently, I was listening to them. He has been kind of floating in and out of games. He's obviously always been a goofy player, right? He's not a point guard that's going to just line up and score on you one-on-one as easily, right? He needs to push the pace. He needs to have his outlets in the pick and roll, all of those things. I'm a little surprised by that. I felt like he was on a pretty upward trajectory last year. And okay, maybe he was playing a little bit over his head during their NBA Cup run, but clearly had injected the Pacers with this fast-paced, fun culture. He has not been the same guy so far this year.
No, he has not.
We'll see if he can bounce back tonight.
A little surprising, too, coming off of the Team USA while he didn't play. He was around those guys, and you see those players come back from the Olympics, and they play pretty well, learning from some of those other stars.
Speaking of Haliburton, he had, I think, my favorite tweet of all time.
The
participation trophy tweet. Because obviously everybody was worried about Jason Tatum not playing. Team USA had 12 guys. Normally they would have a 9 or 10 game rotation. Haliburton was the one guy who just wasn't even sniffing the rotation.
And didn't mind.
And at his locker after the gold medal game, after Steph sends everybody home night, he's in his locker and he holds up his gold medal and he says, when you get an A on the class project, but you didn't do nothing.
You did nothing. The group project, man, it all comes together pretty well overall. By the way, yes, a reminder that Thomas Bryant, as Clint reminds us, was traded to the Pacers today from the Miami Heat to give them a little backup center help, since those other guys.
Fits their style, shoots threes.
And Indiana Hoosier played college basketball there.
Forgot about that.
In Indiana as well. Also, want to point out as we get ready for this game tonight, Nembhard is back. Very curious to see how he looks. He's probably going to get the assignment with Tyrese Maxey. Ben Mathurin also will, see him out there defending those guys too. Little teaser. You brought up Tim Legler with Adam Mars on the All NBA podcast, the All City All NBA podcast. I had a conversation today with Tim Legler that we will drop over the weekend, and we did talk about the disappointment team, and specifically more Joel Embiid with the Philadelphia 76ers. So look out for that over the weekend, where we had a conversation with Tim Legler.
Legs was not mad. He was disappointed.
Yes, he was disappointed, but we did talk about the stretch of games that they had. They have 8 games left this year in December. They have a good chance, man. Now they're going on the road, but they do have a pretty good chance to take care of business over these next 3, starting with the Pacers here tonight. All right, let's get to our pick segment here this evening with our pick segment brought to you by our good friends from Bet365. Yes, Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Let's see what we have here. Bree, I started off with a 3 All-Stars. What do you guys have tonight? Joel had 31. Tyrese Maxey had 20 plus. Paul George, not so much. But tonight, Joel, I went with simply 25 points tonight. 15 plus for Paul George and over 21.5 for Tyrese Maxey. It's the same game parlay, folks. You also have the opportunity on Bet365 to boost that with 30% with their 30% parlay boost on Bet365. Hope you all can take advantage of that. How about you, Rich?
I went with the passing, Devon, and I talked earlier about how Joel Embiid gives Tyrese Maxey these easy outlets for these easy assists. Well, that works both ways, right? Joel Embiid, little handoff to Tyrese Maxey. If he takes a dribble or two, that's all right. They still count that in the box score. Tyrese Maxey had a huge offensive game against these guys right around this time last year. It was a little bit before, but we'll say right around this time last year. Mm-hmm. And I think, obviously Miles Turner is somebody who has struggled to guard him for a lot of his career. Like, he's been a classic guy where
him in foul trouble.
Just put him in fouls pretty easily. If they don't have Miles Turner, if they go to some of their other options, I think they're going to be doubling him. I think there will be outlets for Joel to get some easy assists, whether it's threes, layups, all those things. I think he's going to be passing the ball tonight.
Can I tell you my favorite Joel pass to Tyrese Maxey off the dribble handoff?
Yeah.
It's when he bounces it on the floor and allows Maxey to run into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's my favorite one. That's my favorite one of that. And those are our picks. The pregame pick segment was brought to you by Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. How you feeling about this one tonight?
I think it's a win.
So do I. All right, that'll do it for us.
Kiss of death.
I know. That'll do it for us. Our pregame show is presented by Coors Light. Visit CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball to get Coors Light delivered or to find a store near you. We'll catch up with the guys after the game. Derek and Kyle are at the arena. Maybe we're talking about a win, and that would be 5 of 6 for the 76ers.
Would be nice.
For Bree, Rich, I'm Devon. We'll catch up with you all after the game. Stay warm, put your feet up, get your Coors Light, and get ready for some Sixers basketball, maybe a W. And hopefully we're talking about that with you after the game right here. We'll see you then. PHLY Sixers Podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.